And thanks so much for your time. Firstly, can I start actually with that question, about what exactly it is, this magnetic North Pole? And there was a lot of articles this time last year alarming us that it was moving more rapidly and changing direction, but hasn't it always moved? Tell us a bit, what exactly is it and why is it important?
Yes, so you're right, it has always moved. The magnetic North Pole, and as well as the magnetic South Pole, points at the Earth where the Earth's magnetic field is vertical, so it goes directly down into or out of the surface. And that's a somewhat arbitrary point that we use. The thing that is useful for us is that if you were to use, say, a compass, it's the point towards which your compass would point. And that's what separates it from, say, the geographic pole, which is the point at the top of the Earth that the Earth rotates around. And yes, the North Pole has always moved, as far as we are aware, and that's because of the very dynamic nature in which the Earth's magnetic field is generated. So it's generated within the Earth's core. This is a ball of molten iron about 7,000 kilometers across, and the iron is in a liquid state because it's very hot at the center of the Earth, and as it flows around, it conducts electricity, and these moving currents generate a magnetic field in what's called a dynamo or a geodynamo at the center of the Earth. It's much like what you'd use to power your bike lights if you have them hooked up to the motion of the wheel. You have moving electrical currents, and they generate magnetic fields from that.
But can I ask you, because it has always moved, but it seems to have started to speed up perhaps, and then it changed from heading in the direction of Canada towards changing to Siberia. Now, you have said that the movement is generated by the Earth's core, which is thousands of kilometers under our feet. But, what impacts it? What do you see as the reason for this movement and switch in direction?
So yes, it has moved since about 1860. It's moved about 2,500 kilometers. But in fact, the thing that's been quite interesting is that since the 1990s, it's really sped up very much, as you alluded to. So it's gone from moving at around 10 to 15 kilometers a year up until around the 1990s, and then it really sped up to about 50 kilometers a year over that last 30-year period. So that motion, that acceleration, is all to do with the way in which the fluid iron in the Earth's core moves. It moves in such a chaotic manner. It's quite unpredictable for us because we're so far away. It's 3,500 kilometers below our feet. And so the only way we have to monitor the motion of that fluid is by looking at the magnetic field that results from it. So we use it as a tracer to try and understand the way the core is moving. Because it moves in a very unpredictable manner, then the pole as well moves in sometimes quite an unpredictable manner.
I have read that some scientists believe that a drought here on Earth and the level of water we have across the Earth has a direct impact on this magnetic field. Do you agree with that? How do you see the interrelation between the two?
It's certainly a very complicated one. The Earth as a planet, as an entire system, is a very complicated arrangement of many things. The magnetic field itself, the part that we're familiar with, the bit that gives us our poles, comes from inside in the Earth's core. But when we make a measurement of the magnetic field, what we're measuring is not just what the Earth's core is doing. We're measuring the magnetism of the rocks that we're standing on. We're measuring the influence of the sun, which has a hugely powerful magnetic field, and obviously is very different because it shines on one side of the Earth and while the other side is in darkness. So you have very different behaviors through the day even. The magnetic field is constantly changing, and there's much that we do know about it, and also much that we are still trying to understand in terms of the effects of how climate or the interaction between the sun and the Earth in what we call space weather, how this all interacts with each other, and what that means for the measurements we might make of the magnetic field on any given day.
Now, you said earlier that the impact here on Earth, it might be minor for a lot of us unless we actually head to those poles, but it does impact GPS or compasses, because the compass, the point of the north will change. Does it also affect then animals that migrate and things like that? Tell us a bit more about the impacts and, how we adapt to that as this magnetic North Pole moves.
So we do believe that there are various animals that have some kind of sense of the magnetic field, but how exactly they navigate by it is not very clear to us. Humans do it, but we do it in quite a complicated manner. We build instruments like compasses in which to measure the magnetic field, and we understand how to separate the influence of all the different sources of magnetic fields, how to tell what's coming from the Earth's core versus what's coming from the rocks we're standing on, or the activity of the sun shining on the Earth. It's not clear how animals would do that, but we do understand that they may have some sense of perhaps which way is north or where the field is stronger or weaker. That's still very much a difficult question in science to understand how they manage that. But yes, our navigation by compass, you may not get a map and a compass out very regularly, but most people have a smartphone or a GPS system in their car, for example. And while GPS will give you your position, it's often a measurement of the magnetic field made with an instrument called a magnetometer inside your phone or inside your car that gives you the direction in which you're facing. And in order to make use of that information, you have to have a reference, not just telling you where your compass, your magnetometer points towards the magnetic North Pole, for example, but you also have to understand how that relates to where you are geographically. So you have to have a kind of reference map to correct yourself and orientate yourself in the same direction that you want to be facing.
Very, very briefly, Dr. Brown, but does the same happen at the South Pole, or is it completely different?
It is both the same and different. There is a magnetic South Pole, and it does also move, but it is not tied to the North Pole in a sense that they can move independently of each other. And while the North Pole has moved very quickly, and quite a long way in the last few hundred years, the South Pole has not. It's actually been relatively static.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Dr. Brown, thanks so much for joining us live and giving us your insight into that magnetic North Pole, opening worlds for those of us that don't follow all these movements. Dr. Brown, they're coming to us live. Okay, if you're just joining us, these are our top stories.
Whoa. The Capital One Quicksilver card does not need a dog and pony show. It's simple. Unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase with no annual fee. No need to jump through any crazy hoops. What's in your wallet?
Did you know that Earth has two North Poles? There's the geographic North Pole, which never changes, and there's the magnetic North Pole, which is always on the move. And right now, it's moving faster than usual. Over the last 150 years, the magnetic North Pole has casually wandered 685 miles across northern Canada. But right now, it's racing 25 miles a year to the northwest. This could be a sign that we're about to experience something humans have never witnessed before: a magnetic polar flip. And when this happens, it could affect much more than just your compass.
Right now on the surface of the planet, it looks like it's just a bar magnet, right? Our compasses are just pointing toward one pole at a time, because there's a dominant two-pole dipole system.
But sometimes, Earth doesn't always just have a single magnetic north and south pole. Evidence suggests that for hundreds to thousands of years at a time, our planet has had 4, 6, and even 8 poles at a time. This is what has happened when the magnetic poles flipped in the past. And when it happens again, it won't be good news for humans. Now you might think that 8 poles must be better than 2, but the reality is that multiple magnetic fields would fight each other. This could weaken Earth's protective magnetic field by up to 90% during a polar flip. Earth's magnetic field is what shields us from harmful space radiation, which can damage cells, cause cancer, and fry electronic circuits and electrical grids. With a weaker field in place, some scientists think this could expose planes to higher levels of radiation, making flights less safe. This could also disrupt the internal compass in many animals, which use the magnetic field for navigation. Even more extreme, it could make certain places on the planet too dangerous to live. But what exactly will take place on the surface is less clear than what will undoubtedly happen in space. Satellites and crewed space missions will need extra shielding that we'll have to provide ourselves. Without it, intense cosmic and solar radiation will fry circuit boards and increase the risk of cancer in astronauts. Our modern way of life could cease to exist. We know this because we're already seeing a glimpse of this in an area called the South Atlantic Anomaly. Turns out, the direction of a portion of the magnetic field deep beneath this area has already flipped. And scientists say that's one reason why the field has been steadily weakening since 1840. As a result, The Hubble Space Telescope and other satellites often shut down their sensitive electronics as they pass over the area, and astronauts on the International Space Station report seeing a higher number of bright flashes of light in their vision, thought to be caused by high-energy cosmic rays that the weaker field can't hold back. Since experts started measuring the anomaly a few decades ago, it has grown in size and now covers a fifth of Earth's surface, with no signs of shrinking anytime soon. This is so extreme that it could be a sign we're on the brink of a polar flip, or we may already be in the midst of one. But scientists remain skeptical, mainly because
the last thing the poles reversed was 780,000 years ago. So it's not, we don't have an oral record of it.
Turns out 780,000 years is over double the time that Earth usually takes between flips.
Since the last mass extinction, there have been reversals roughly every 300,000 years.
So what gives? Well, scientists haven't figured it out yet. It's unnerving to think that our modern way of life, banking, the stock exchange, missile tracking, GPS, relies on the outcome of something we can neither predict nor control. One study went so far as to estimate that a single giant solar storm today could cost the U.S. up to $41.5 billion a day in damages. And that's with the Earth's magnetic field at its current strength. It's frightening to even imagine the devastation a storm would bring to an Earth with a magnetic field only 10% as strong as it is now. We may not be able to stop a polar flip, but we can at least start to take measures to minimize the damage. The first step? Figure out what's going on with this wacky field. On the hunt are the European Space Agency's swarm satellites that are currently collecting the most precise data on the strength of Earth's magnetic field. Right now, they could be our greatest hope for solving this riddle.
John Tyson's motto was, "When better chickens are hatched, we will hatch them." It's why all of the Tyson chicken that bears his name is raised with no antibiotics ever. Every nugget, strip, and drumstick. Keep it real. Keep it Tyson.
Is this Clark, this interstellar comet? Yeah, big news.
I don't see Clark.
Oh, maybe he's still sleeping.
Dad.
Some of Clark's larger fragments are now expected to enter our atmosphere.
That's right. What are they saying?
More of the same. Whoa. Where are they going?
I don't know. One first chance is about to hit.
What?
Only part of it. It's going, Yosh. But you look at that. Wait, where's the explosion? We now are getting word that the fragment has hit Central Florida.
Wait, are some more pieces gonna hit?
Come on, let's go.
But the sky's on fire.
2 days. They got it all wrong. There's a ton of fragments. Planet killers.
Space agencies are predicting an extinction level event.
We're gonna be together. All right, get up. We're just trying to get to safety.
They've been tracking the military flights to bunkers in Greenland.
It's our only chance.
Perimeter breach. Perimeter breach. Runway 33.
Allison! They said! Allison!
Where's Dad?
We'll find him. It's okay. Clark's largest fragment will hit in less than 24 hours.
I swear, I'm gonna get my family into that bunker. I know you will, son.